Hello, I'm Dr. John Sanders with Voyage Clinics Podcast. Today I have Jeremy Gardner, Dr. Jeremy Gardner with me. He's an optometry doctor of optometry. He works at Achieve Family Vision. He's going to do just a brief bio for us, and we're going to get rolling. The eye is kind of the window to a lot of things in our brain and our development. And he kind of specializes in the neurodevelopment through the eye of our brains and ourselves. He specializes in spaces like dyslexia, ADHD, autism, learning challenges, all kinds of headaches, migraines, computer eye strain. I mean, there's lots of things that you do. And so I'm excited to speak with you. I think it's largely maybe not understood that optometrists can do cool things like what you're doing.
Yeah, it's an interesting path. We're all introduced to this side, and you choose whether you specialize or not. I am what you call a neurodevelopmental optometrist. So beyond being an eye doctor, I've gone into an extra training, a residency, and a fellowship to learn about how vision affects development. Mm-hmm. From infants that are learning to crawl, they use vision to guide how they move. Their interest in the world. So when you get older, it guides your attention to where you place your attention visually, guides how you pay attention in school and how you read. Even to adults on computers all day long, how does your vision help support you to do your job for such a long period of time when we weren't built to do that originally?
Yeah.
And when things go wrong, like concussions, brain injuries, strokes, how do we get back on track with how our vision and our brain work together?
Dr. Jeremy, what drew you to the eye and optometry and all that?
Yeah, it actually was a journey for me. I didn't expect myself to be here when I started out college, but I did a bunch of shadowing, and I shadowed all the different types of medical professionals I could think of, from pediatricians to optometrists to dentists to physical therapists, occupational therapy. I kind of went through it all just to get a view of what it would be like. I was drawn to two fields in particular, optometry and physical therapy. But I like the immediate change I can make in someone's life through optometry and helping them see the world in a better way. And I found a way to bring in some of that physical therapy touch with what we do in vision therapy at our office at Achieve Family Vision.
I'm excited to learn more about that because I think it's underutilized and not very well understood that vision therapy can help in so many ways. It's going to be great. Tell us a little bit about yourself, hobbies, interests. What do you like to do? And
I'm a dad and a husband. Got 5 kids, including some twin boys in there that made life a little more interesting than we thought it would be.
Twins always make it interesting. Twice the fun.
Yeah, they range from 8 years old to 1-year-old right now, so we're in the thick of it.
Oh, boy.
And we enjoy being outdoors, going on walks. I play the piano. I love music. Active in my church, and just love to be around people and talk with them.
That's awesome. Well, let's get into it just a little bit. I'd love to just learn about the connection there, why the eye can affect our development, and when that kind of begins, and then as we grow, like what are the things that we can maybe do to kind of improve that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big barriers I found for people really understanding how vision plays into development is how we treat it in our medical system and society. Pediatricians, school screenings, they're all focused on just one thing, 20/20 eyesight.
Yeah. Can you see?
Can you see? Yeah. Which is a foundational thing. If you can't see, that's a problem. But all they do is have you cover an eye. Can you tell what a small detail is far away? And they think if you can do that, you can do anything with your vision, which would be nice if that was the case. Mm-hmm. But there's much more to it. In fact, I brought a little model here of the eye here, but there's a lot of things that go on beyond just seeing clearly. You have to see clearly, but then you have to know what to do with that information. There's actually 6 muscles around each eye that help aim and direct that eye, and they have to work in perfect synchrony with the other eye so they see together. There's a muscle inside the eye that focuses our lens to keep things clear and transition our focus from far away and up close. And if we have trouble in doing that, we might get headaches, eye strain. It might be hard for us to pay attention in school or on the computer. We might think I might have ADHD or dyslexia because it's not coming easily to me. In fact, 80% of what we learn comes through the visual system. Auditory helps as well. Tactile helps as well. But we're visual learners, we're visual beings as human beings. And so even from a young age, toddlers and babies, they have to use their vision to guide them to what they're going to do. The first thing a baby learns to do is on tummy time, they learn to lift up their head and look around. And once they start realizing there's a world around them, they start reaching for things within their bubble of space. And then a magical thing happens when they start moving. They realize that they can move through space to get to the things they're seeing in the world, and then start exploring with their motor abilities. Then we keep growing and developing, and that becomes easier and easier. And then we're told to sit down in a classroom and hold still for 7.5 hours a day and pay attention. And if our eyes aren't ready to keep that attention going where we want it, we're going to be distracted by all the movement in the classroom. We're going to be distracted by the noises over there and everything going on, and we're going to have a hard time sitting still and paying attention for school or for work, for that matter, for those that have desk jobs.
That's really cool. I think this is a good segue into that space, which is the attention deficit space, and how vestibular ocular or just ocular rehabilitation can kind of assist with that. Can you speak to that space?
Yeah, absolutely. So attention deficit is on the rise, as everybody is seeing in the media. And I think a lot of that has to do with how we're spending our time. Growing up, we're not outdoors as much. We're not moving around as much. We're on screens a whole lot more, which immobilize the body and we don't move. And as we're going through this, we're learning to use our attention, or learning to misuse our attention if we're on YouTube videos all the time and we need something new every 5 seconds, or we're going to lose attention.
Yeah. We've spoke to the neuroprogramming that's happening right now on our podcast, and we truly are neuroprogramming attention deficit in our society through the doom scrolling, through the videos. I think attention span is like 3 seconds, like they're just going to the next thing. And there is a problem with that. You mentioned, interestingly, being more sedentary, sitting longer, and why that affects focus. Just from a biochemical standpoint, movement, exercise, sports, all those things, they increase dopamine and norepinephrine in your brain. The Apache Nation, that they have like one of the higher percentages of ADHD in our whole United States. And what's interesting is it's a superpower in nature. In hunter-gatherer foraging, it's a superpower. You're seeing the whole. You're making all these cool synapses, and you're kind of it's a magic power. In the classroom, they struggle. They really struggle, especially if they don't get the movement part.
Yes.
And so as we've cut out recess, we've cut out the movement time in our school systems, it's really exacerbated the problem. Just from a norepinephrine dopamine standpoint. Dopamine hits whenever you're hunter-gathering, you get more dopamine, and it drives that. And so they're excellent hunter-gatherers. And now we get a pseudo-hunter-gatherer thing with just sitting there and hunter-gathering on a game or on a video console or on your phone. And yeah, you get a little bit of dopamine, you're kind of in a dopamine bath, but then it tanks, and then your secretion of anyway, it's not the correct way to do it.
No.
And so, I just think the movement is clutch. And I'm interested to hear how training the eye can kind of help with some of those spaces. Obviously, I think a holistic approach to this, including the exercise and all those other pieces, are important. But man, I'm super interested in your approach.
Yeah, thanks. So one of the things I always tell my patients and the families that come in is that because everybody has a limited view on what vision is, vision therapy doesn't really capture what we do. It really is brain therapy through the eyes, through vision, through movement too. So we build in a lot of vestibular work, a lot of movement patterns, because we learn with all the senses. And so we need to engage them all to make sure our attention is there. So one of the best things parents can do with young kids is to get them outside and get them moving for a couple reasons. The movement and the dopamine, like you talked about. But also visually, there's some things that have to happen for us to keep our attention. Both eyes have to focus together for extended periods of time. They need to be able to learn spatial abilities. On screens, everything's two-dimensional, even if it simulates three-dimensional. And our brain can get a confusing signal when it's trying to make sense of things moving through space when they're not really moving. Getting outdoors, climbing trees, playing on the playground, playing sports are all great ways to help us actually interact with the world in a three-dimensional way, which primes our brain for attention and learning. Beyond
throw a ball, throw a frisbee, like catch.
Get outside and be physical. Eye-hand coordination, movement and tracking things in motion, like for sports. It's all really good for you. Beyond that, our eyes have to track both balls for sports and words on a page for reading. And oftentimes we get so hyper-focused in the world that we're in that we just focus on the one detail we're looking at. Part of getting outside also helps open what's called our peripheral vision or our side vision. Our side vision helps move our eyes in a fluid way. It grounds us so that we can see the world around us, know where to direct our eyes and our attention with our eyes, and can help us to know where the next word on the page is. So a lot of kids are now experiencing more and more, not only headaches and eye strain, but they can't keep their place when they read. They're skipping words in line. They're having to reread things again and again. And that's not helping their attention if they have to work that much harder just to get through it. And as they do that, they're getting more and more frustrated with reading. And they'd rather be doing the things that hold their attention visually without them needing to work for it, which is the screens.
Sure.
They also need to be able to maintain clarity in a comfortable way. Oftentimes people say, oh, my kid has 20/20 vision. Their vision is perfect. I said, okay, that's great that they can pass that test perfectly. But in order to really have perfect vision, you need to have clear, comfortable, single vision that lasts you the whole day without any issues. And that's where a lot of people run into problems with vision without realizing that it's vision causing the challenge. So if you feel like your kid can't focus for a long time, it could be how their vision's focusing. It could be that they're not getting enough exercise. It could be their diet and nutrition. There's lots of pieces to it. So we need to look at the whole child. And that's what we do as neurodevelopmental optometrists is we look at the whole picture. Yes, our training is in neuro and vision and how that all works for attention, learning, and function. But we also work with a lot of really cool people in the community, auditory processing specialists, mental health specialists, OTs, PTs, speech language pathologists, reading tutors. And we've created a cool network. At Achieve, our mission is we're teaming up with professionals, educators, and parents to eradicate addressable learning challenges for Utah students by the year 2035. And that's not just us doing it. It's us and a group of really cool people working together in a collaborative way instead of staying in our own silos and doing our own thing to help make that happen. But it first comes with awareness and education and people understanding that there's more to vision than just passing the 20/20 eye test at school or at the pediatrician.
Totally. So if I have a kid who's struggling with focus, what are some of the things that you look for from as an optometrist or neurooptometrist that you can maybe improve or help them with?
Yeah. So if they're struggling with reading fluency, they're struggling with attention for reading and writing activities, if they're skipping words and lines when they're reading and having to go back and redo it, if they're getting frustrated and it's a battle for homework every time you sit down to try to do any schoolwork with your kid at home, and you know they're smart and can do it, but for some reason they just melt down or fall apart, there's an internal battle going on that they're trying to communicate to you, but you can't. And they're just saying, this is hard. I don't want to do this. And we have to find out why it's hard. Is it because their eyes aren't focusing properly? Is it because their attention's not there because their brain isn't connecting with how their vision is processing the information on the page?
So it sounds like you guys do tests specific to that space where you're watching tracking and maybe like how comfortable or how if there's any like hiccups in that tracking process or if they fatigue out really quickly.
Absolutely.
What other things that maybe just muscular eye movement muscles?
Yeah. So one thing I always caution my medical professionals that are talking with me about this is it's actually not a muscle problem usually. It's a brain problem. It's a control center of the muscles challenge or a fine motor control because our eyes are fine motor too. And so it's not that the kids don't have strong enough muscles to do it. It's not that they don't have the endurance to be able to do it if they could just focus. It's that they don't have the finesse to keep their focus where they need to, and they can't filter out all the information around them that's calling for their attention. So we'll also look at what we call central peripheral integration. Can they integrate their vision from what's happening around them and what they need to focus on, and can they transition in and out of being in that hunter survival mode of I can see everything happening and I need to sit down and focus on this so I can do it? Or do they get stuck in one or the other? We'll look at how their eyes track together. We have tests that are standardized that check that. We have a cool computer program that'll actually show with a computerized eye tracking camera what their eyes are doing in the act of reading, or just in movement in general as they follow things. We'll do eye-hand coordination, depth perception type testing as well if they're struggling with sports or general coordination in general. We'll also look at how the brain is coordinating the eyes together to maintain that attention and focus, or does it fatigue quickly, and that's part of the problem. And also we're trained in doing some things in the area of what's called primitive reflex integration, where it's looking into how the brain processes movement in general, very linked to autism and ADHD and dyslexia as well.
This is fascinating. I love that you're so integrative and holistic minded in this approach. It's almost like you're a family doc, like, because that's what we do. Like, we always pull back the 10,000 foot view, look at the whole tree, see all the biopsychosocial elements that are going on with that equation. And then we can go down into, okay, let's look at this detail, and then we zoom back out and we zoom back in.
Yeah.
And so it's a fun process of helping people with growth and development and thriving. With your, it sounds like I would love to know, like, as a parent or as another family doc or somebody, like, mom brings kid in with, ADHD symptoms, maybe some of the things we can look for or ask or discuss that might move us more in a neuro-optometry developmental direction where we might need to bring you in on this equation.
Yeah, one thing I would ask is, have they had their vision checked, and by who? A lot of parents just count the pediatrician checks as a vision check, and they'll say, oh, they said they were fine at the pediatrician. Well, we haven't looked at vision yet. We've looked at eyesight. Or they say, oh, the school checked it. Or I went to an eye doctor, in the mall or whatever. And general eye doctors, although they have been exposed to this, it takes extra time and attention to be able to look at these facets of vision. And because of that, a lot of eye doctors don't take the time to do that. They'd rather just see as many patients as they can and help as many people see 20/20 as they can, which is great. But they haven't had any vision processing testing. They haven't had any eye tracking, eye teaming testing, if they've done even a normal eye exam. And so one of the interesting things is in the criteria for diagnosing dyslexia or ADHD, it says in the absence of vision and hearing challenges. And so this is where we run into trouble sometimes, where the schools aren't identifying this as a problem, or the pediatricians, because they think they've already checked vision.
Yeah. And we may have sent them to an optometrist, but they might not have the touches to kind of rule some of those things out. What are the symptoms specifically as a parent that I should be concerned about when I see, oh, Johnny's having a hard time in music class because he can't track well, or in reading he's struggling? Or what are the signs and symptoms as a parent or as a pediatrician or family doc in dealing with these kiddos that we might trigger our brains to send them your direction?
Yeah, so if the child is struggling with reading, writing, or spelling, those are all very visually based. Reading, because their eyes aren't tracking or keeping their focus enough to be able to do so. Or even on the processing side, maybe they're not identifying the patterns for reading for sight word recognition. Maybe they're struggling. You go over and over and over again with this, and they read this word, you go over it, you teach it to them, you get to the next page, the word comes up, and they've forgotten it. They're not retaining that information well. To become a good reader, you have to know the rules of phonics. That's part of it. But to become a good reader, you have to let go of the rules of phonics and trust your experience with what you've seen visually as you read. We don't sit there and sound out every word as we read once we become fluent readers. It's just pattern recognition after pattern recognition, which comes from your vision and it is then confirmed by your language and auditory centers in your brain to say, yeah, that made sense.
Yeah.
And you keep going. And so if a child is struggling to remember sight words, they're struggling with spelling, they're struggling with fluency in reading because they're skipping words and lines, or having to go back and reread things again, or they have to read it multiple times to remember what it is. Those are all red flags that it could be your vision processing that's causing that. And that's something a normal eye doctor is not going to look into.
Right.
They're going to say, you see 20/20, your vision's great.
Yeah.
And then you've missed a potential avenue for help to help that child learn the skills they need to, because they are trainable. We learn them in life normally, but when you don't learn them in life the way you need to, or there's something going on neurologically or developmentally that's making it harder to learn, you can still be trained in those things and gain those skills so that your confidence can grow in reading.
That's really good. Those are good tips and tricks. I think knowing that neurooptometry exists, and then knowing that some of these kids' behavioral problems, attention deficit problems, reading problems can come from that space, and just brain issues, not necessarily eye issues or muscle issues, like you said, is really valuable. I think that's really cool. Are there any other symptoms that we might want to kind of consider, or are they all based around kind of tracking and reading?
Headaches, especially if they're happening in the middle or end of the day, not first thing in the morning after we've used our eyes. Kids can see 20/20 at a cost sometimes, and it can end up causing a toll where they're not willing to learn or not able to continue to focus and learn if the headache's getting in the way. Maybe they're not telling you it's a headache. Maybe they're just getting agitated, or they're rubbing their eyes, or they're all of a sudden needing to go to the restroom when it comes to reading because they know it's going to be uncomfortable before they start. So those are some other signs you can see. If you think that there might be an attention problem, rule it out before you go down the whole road of officially diagnosing it. Yeah. A lot of kids that can learn to use their vision to aid them instead of get in the way can actually lower their doses of medication for ADHD or even get off of them. Yeah. And so if you don't want your child to be on medication for the rest of your life, see what you can do to help support them in gaining the skills where they don't need it all the time.
Totally. That's so cool. It certainly brought to my mind as a family doc, I do a lot of pediatrics. Maybe some of these kids need additional touches with someone like you to kind of make sure that those things aren't going on. So I'm going to ask a few more questions.
Please do.
With my patients, with my pediatric clients, and just probe a little deeper into the reading space and the frustration and maybe some of the behaviors around reading. I struggled in all those spaces growing up. I think I have some mild dyslexia. I switch around things in my brain, and it's a challenge. It's been I'm a high performer. I always did well in school, and I always did well in even in med school and all through, but it was tricky for me, and I had to work really hard and play lots of pickleball and ping pong and sports and help with some of that stuff. But I think I eventually, I don't know how I kind of rehabbed it, and maybe there's still some work to be done, but it's much, much better. When I was younger, I was like in the B reading class because man, I'm stuck at this. But yeah, that's really cool. That's really good for parents, I think, to hear.
What you bring up there too is a good point, that it's not just kids that are struggling academically. It's kids that are just performing below their potential. And maybe that's a comfort below your potential. Maybe that's a stamina below your potential. Maybe that's, I can just tell they're working really hard to do this, harder than it should be. That's another sign that there could be something going on there. Yeah. Because maybe they haven't given up yet, and they're still pushing through because they're determined, because they're hard workers, because they're great kids. But it doesn't have to be that hard if they can uncover these problems underneath and address them.
Yeah. Can we go into dyslexia a little bit?
Yeah.
Let's define it. Trouble with words. How would you define dyslexia?
Yeah, it's a great question, because if you go online and look it up, you'll get 5 different answers from 5 different places. Yeah. They have some commonalities, like usually it talks about it being a language-based problem because they struggle with phonics or phonetic analysis or phonemic awareness of some kind, which is a key component of it. But it's not the only piece. The word itself means difficulty with words. And yes, that is definitely what you see when somebody has dyslexia, is they struggle with anything written that they have to read. They often will struggle with writing things as well. Yeah.
Because I was a terrible speller. I couldn't spell. I can't do that. It doesn't work. My brain doesn't, it's like, it's not there.
You weren't in the great language for it either. English is not a phonetic language, so that makes it harder. Yeah. You have to remember through your memory and experience, often through your visual memory, what a word looks like after you've come across it enough times, and remember the rules enough to apply it, and then you can spell. But if you're going off of how it sounds, you're going to get it wrong most of the time, because English doesn't make sense that way.
Spanish does.
The Spanish is a great language for that. Yeah.
It's so nice.
So you can teach your kids Spanish, or
or good luck with English.
Yeah. But yeah, with dyslexia, they're having trouble with words through a few different systems. So this is what we need to look into. When you think your child might have dyslexia, or they're just struggling with reading and writing in general, why is that happening? Are they struggling with words visually? They can't focus. They can't keep things clear. Are things actually moving or switching on the page? Some kids actually talk about that. And it's if their vision isn't focusing correctly with how their eyes coordinate together, they're going to experience that. Reversals of letters. Everybody's heard about that with dyslexia.
Let's talk about what it's not.
Yeah. So it's not just reversals of letters. And oftentimes reversals of letters is just correlated with dyslexia. It's not caused by it. It's how you process the directionality of a symbol on the page. We grow up seeing, when we're toddlers and stuff, seeing a chair. And if it's knocked over on its side or standing up, it's still a chair, no matter what direction it's facing. And then we get to this two-dimensional reading world, and it's if the B is this way or that way, it's a B or a D, or if it's flipped that way, it's a P or a Q. And all of a sudden, the same thing isn't the same thing anymore. The direction matters in its meaning, and we have to process that and learn that visually and language-based. But yeah, are we having difficulty with words because of vision or because of auditory? Not just, and this is similar to the space I work in, not just can you hear it clearly, but do you know what to do with that information when you hear it? Can you process it? Just like, can you see the page clearly, but do you know what those symbols mean when they're grouped together? And can you process that, what the symbols are, and recognize them and remember them and use them? Or are they having trouble because of language challenges? Maybe they can read fine in their head, but when you ask them to read out loud, they fall apart. And there's something about getting it out into language that's part of the trouble. Or getting it out into handwriting. Which handwriting is another thing that often gets overlooked in the space I work, where we plan out everything we're going to write visually before we put it down. And we have to tell our hand what to do to stay within the lines, make it the same sizing, same spacing, stay on the line, and make it look legible. If we're not using that pre-planning visual processing abilities, it's going to come out differently than we expected, and we're going to be like, whoa, what is that? Or it's going to be hard to read or hard to organize. Even my math problems might be jumbled because I can't line them up in columns or in rows correctly with that. And that can just be another sign that there might be a vision processing challenge going on underneath.
As a doctor, we take like courses in bad handwriting, specifically how to write
so you can sign
worse.
things like a doctor, right?
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think the handwriting, they've done studies on folks that journal and write and how that affects the brain and their emotions, actually. And it's actually therapeutic and good for you. That's
Absolutely.
really interesting.
But one of the big things that that brought me to where I am today is parents. And they're hearing again and again and again, why haven't I heard about this? Why haven't I heard about this? How come my pediatrician never checked for this? How come the school never let me know about this when they finally discover what's going on underneath? So at our office, it's myself and two other neurodevelopmental optometrists that I work with. And we started meeting with people in the community, parents, educators, professionals, and just trying to get a feel for how can we help these families. One of the steps in our journey was we were talking to an auditory processing specialist out of the Provo Hospital. And she said, I've noticed this really interesting correlation. We're like, share. She said, almost 100% of my patients that have auditory processing problems have vision processing problems as well. We're like, oh, that's interesting. And so we looked further into that and found out that they're so interconnected that really auditory processing and vision processing challenges together kind of equal language processing challenges. If you can't understand the sounds that the symbols make and you can't understand the organization of how the symbols look when you're reading, you're going to struggle with putting it into words and meaning and understanding. And so we met with her, we met with mental health professionals, we met with speech language, OT, and kind of gathered the best of the best minds together to find out what really goes into this dyslexia puzzle, because it's often more than just one thing. And I think that's part of the barrier why we're not identifying it. That and the schools are kind of tied legislatively. They're not allowed to make direct recommendations to things because they could be held liable to help fund it if that happens, which is an unfortunate space for them to be in because they know it, they're on the front lines, they see it, but they can't say it. And so we gathered all these people together, got their input, and created a really unique evaluation that we called the Dyslexia and Processing Evaluation, what it does is its aim is not to label a child with a diagnosis. There's enough people out there that do a great job with that. But instead to identify what are the core underlying problems that are causing this child's reading and learning challenge. And so with the input of all these specialists in their fields, we've compiled a bunch of research-based assessments and evaluations that probe into each of those areas. They look at vision processing, they look at phonemic awareness, they look at phonics, they look at movement development, they look at auditory processing, language processing, mental health, and all these different pieces so that we can identify what are the core underlying issues that are causing this challenge instead of just saying, oh, it looks like dyslexia, they're struggling with reading.
Yeah.
Or it looks like attention deficit because they can't sit still.
Yeah.
And then it's accompanied by a bunch of surveys that have been vetted by these professionals as well to help parents identify what they're observing at home and how that connects with these challenges. Because there's a lot of kids that get test anxiety and could give you a bad score on a test. We don't want to rely solely on that.
Sure.
These surveys are actually available to anybody who wants to find them. We have them on our website at achievevt.com. We also have them on No More Struggling Students or Thriving Students you can find online.
Is this a tool that pediatricians and family docs could maybe utilize as well?
They can use it, yeah. It's available for anybody to download free. So you just go online, download it from our website, fill it out, and most of them have guidance as to what does it mean when they score high on it. Or you can start saying, oh, I'm seeing these two things seem to be describing my child well.
Sounds like you're testing a lot of things. Is it all in one session, or do you break that up a little bit?
So the testing's in one session. It's a 90 to 120 minute evaluation, so it does take some time.
Fatigue out any kid.
It can, which we want to see as well because that's what they're doing in school. So we do break it up with brain breaks as they move around and do things. So they're not sitting straight for that time. We don't expect them to do that, no.
They'll perform poorly at the end of that.
And most of them are actually kind of game-based. We tell them, hey, we're going to play a game. This is a matching game. Tell me what's, this. And so we make it fun and interactive for the kids. It's that one testing environment there. The parents fill out these surveys ahead of schedule or during the evaluation based on their preference. Then we take a week to kind of go through all the results and see the connections, put it together and write a report that we're going to share with the family. And then we bring the parents back and sit down one-on-one with them and spend some time to help them understand what this means about their child, why their child is struggling, and what resources are available in the community to help them. Some of those resources might lead to what we do in vision therapy and helping kids overcome it if it's a vision-based challenge or a vision processing challenge. Or we might send them to a good OT or speech-language pathologist or auditory processing specialist so they can work on the specific things we've identified that are at the root of that learning challenge. So it's really geared toward helping you understand why your child struggles and what you can do about it.
Listening to this is so intriguing for me. I think in medicine, we've been remiss at doing these kinds of comprehensive evaluations, and we could change that. But with that has to come the knowledge of it. So I think this podcast will shine some light on it. I'll share it with some of my colleagues, my pediatrician and family doc colleagues. But knowing that there is a comprehensive testing process to kind of look at some of these spaces and then bring in, like you mentioned, like this multi-pronged approach to the different people that might help in the different spaces that they might be deficient in, I think is really cool. I wonder if we could, just thinking between you and I, the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American Association of Family Physicians, I think those two entities could benefit from that knowledge so that they could say, okay, let's incorporate in these well-child visits some of these screening things, and maybe chop it up, because we see kids, 1 day of life, 2 days of life, and then 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 15, 18, 24. That's the first 2 years of life, how often we're seeing these families if they're adhering to the normal pediatric well-child visit protocols that we recommend. And every step of the way, we kind of check for developmental milestones, we check for all these things. And it seems like if there are tools like this, we could very easily start incorporating some of them into that space. And then we meet with our kids annually, at least after that, right?
Absolutely.
So 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 or 7, and so on. So I wonder if the AAP or the American Association of Pediatrics, AAP, could just incorporate it, because we already go over developmental milestones. Mm-hmm. Why not throw in some of these neurodevelopmental milestones? I think that would be really neat to try to bridge some of those gaps.
That would be great. In fact, our vision for this isn't for us to hold on to this and be the ones that do it. We can't do that for all of Utah like we want to be able to do. And eventually beyond, I hope it would spread. But we would love to help anybody that's interested learn how they can do this in their own space. Pediatricians, family docs, you guys are just as attuned to those overall child needs, where you could, with some extra training and guidance, just fill in the gaps in your knowledge to know, oh, this could be this or this, and kind of make those connections. And if we had schools and pediatricians and doctors screening for these things in a way where we could really get families to the help they need earlier in life to help prevent and address these challenges before they become bigger, it could change Utah. And so if anyone's interested in learning more, we'd be more than happy to meet with them and see, how can we help bring this to your clinic? How can you help bring this to your office so you can help in this effort to connect families with solutions?
Dr. Jeremy, I think the answer is yes. So yes, come and train our staff at our clinic, at Voyage Clinics, on this, in this space. We'd love to implement it and then just spread the word with the other docs that we know as well. And I would honestly, because it sounds like you have this core group that are meeting with some degree of frequency to try to help kids learn and grow and all that. Bring in the pediatricians, bring in the family docs, and let them sit in on these cases and say, oh, wow, that's really cool. I didn't know that, and oh, I didn't know that even existed. And that's part of the reason why we're having this discussion, because I didn't know it. These are just blind spots in our education process, and we need them filled in. And so that'd be super sweet, man. Yeah. Super sweet. Okay, sorry, we kind of died.
That's okay.
So to finish up on dyslexia, you have probably a multi-pronged approach to kind of figuring it out. Mm-hmm. And then depending on some of the sources of the weak spots of this assessment tool, getting them to either your team or another team that another specialist in an area that might be able to address those things and help them with, audiology or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Or OT or whatever. Okay, sweet. Anything else in the dyslexia space you'd like to add?
I would just add that there is hope for kids with dyslexia. A lot of parents are told, you're just born with it. You just got to learn to adapt and accommodate with it, which is great to give accommodations in school to help kids feel more safe and comfortable. That's important. But instead of just doing that and leaving it at, well, we don't know what's causing it, so we can't fix it. So let's just do our best to support Johnny through school until he graduates, and then he'll choose a job that doesn't involve reading, and he'll be okay. We can really work together as a community. We work a lot with schools, do in-service trainings and things when we're invited in to come share this and give resources to schools so they can learn how to better help these children that need to learn in different ways. And as they're addressing these challenges, these accommodations won't be needed for their entire life, but just until they're to a successful point that they can carry on without, which will then take a burden off of the schools that are trying to just manage all of the accommodations being requested for every kid. Teachers are great and they want to help everybody, but there's only so many of them to be able to implement those things. And so if we can work together as medical professionals, as parents, and as educators together and communicate what we're finding and break down some of those walls that have been there that keep us in our own separate silos, we'll be able to make a bigger difference together than we could on our own.
That's awesome. In your discussion on dyslexia, you mentioned that some of the auditory learning and listening had a link to the visual side.
Yeah.
And I just want to share, my wife, this is an N of 4 kids, but really great research study. But one of the things that we advise folks in our pediatric visits is to read to their children and read to them out loud and create like little systems. And my wife, she did her undergrad in English, and then she did a master's in English, and she's just a voracious reader, and she loves literature and fiction and all kinds of really good stuff. And over the years, she had a routine. Her bedtime routine was, in my opinion, quite long, but but it was always some reading. And I thought it was so cool to see the development of all my kids in their reading space. And she would always read about 1 to 2 grade levels above what their age were. And it was amazing. Like, they all read really well. They all hear really well. Their listening comprehension is excellent. And even sometimes on car rides, mom would read to them. And I just think it's that process of hearing it and following it, and anything we can do to exercise those brain cells and those developmental cells are going to be really healthy. So every night religiously, she had this routine with our kids. And I was like, gosh, honey, this is like a 45-minute routine. Let's put these kids to bed. What the deal? And she's like, no, it's fine. And she would grind it out and do it. And I just think it really paid dividends as I see them doing well on all their standardized tests, and they're reading beautifully and fluently, and they're just all excelling. It's super neat.
Yeah, there's a few things that stand out to me in that example you shared. It's a great model to go by if you're going to help your kids learn language, learn development. Because through that process, there's a few things that your wife was helping them with. One, she was helping them to be exposed to the language that they were going to need when they became readers at that level. By reading above their level, they're able to, when we learn a language, even as a baby and toddler, we first learn by listening to our parents over and over and over again and connecting what those things mean as we see the pattern. And then we learn to say it ourselves. And then we learn to read it visually and apply it that way. And so they're constantly being exposed. So they're going to have a bigger vocabulary, a bigger arsenal to be able to pull from when they're trying to decode these words visually and figure out what they are. Like, oh, I've heard that word before. Mom's read it to me. I've heard that sentence before. I've heard it from mom. So talking to your children, singing with your children, reading to your children helps expose them in a great way to prepare them for reading readiness. It also shows them that reading is something fun. A lot of kids are seeing that reading is homework. And then they develop this aversion to reading because all it is a chore. Whereas you make it a fun, connecting space. I get time one-on-one with mom or with dad to sit in their lap and just be with them and read with them. I don't get this attention throughout the day. This is a wonderful time. I love this. Yeah. And then we're building this love for reading from the beginning. Yeah. Another thing you can add to that to enhance it even further, if you'd like, is get art and creativity into it. So maybe not right before bed, but throughout the day, if you find times to listen to a story or read a story, then let's draw a picture of what that was. Let's bring that story to life in our imagination. Let's play it out with toys. Let's, recreate it again. Don't let it just be words on a page. Let it be an experience, a story. And so I'll often recommend my families that come to us when they have a child that doesn't love reading yet, that they will either read to their child or read with their child for a short amount of time, whatever their stamina allows, and then invite them to draw a picture of what they just read. And do it in as much detail and color as possible, trying to bring all that visualization of what they had just experienced by hearing the words. What did they see in their mind? And then, after they've done that, either tell me in a sentence or write in a sentence, what did that story just tell us? Don't go straight to the words. Bring a picture to it. Bring a movie in your head to it. And then once you've experienced that story and made it a real thing, then tell me what you remember from it. Don't just make it a chore.
I love it. Those are the nuggets that I want to pull out today. Any other tips and tricks that you would recommend for parents who come to see you, whether it's in the ADD space, dyslexia, autism, etc.? What are the things that you encourage parents to do with their kids to kind of help their visual neurodevelopment?
We talked before about the movement side of it, getting them involved in sports or just getting outside together as a family. Go for walks, go for bike rides, go to the park together. Make it a family event as much as your schedule allows. because being together makes it more fun and makes their attention on that much better than if you just tell them to go do it on your own. Beyond that, I think if you're seeing that your child is struggling and it's becoming a fight and getting in the way of just a happy, harmonious home environment, look into what could be causing that. Don't just tell them they need to read more if every time you ask them to read, it turns into a fight, because you're just going to ingrain that aversion to reading and ingrain that frustration. It's going to grow, not shrink. Still invite them to try. You don't want to just tell them forget reading and don't do it if they don't want to, but make it manageable. Break it up into smaller bits. Make a reward activity out of it that when they do it, they be able to do this. But just making them practice reading more and more and more. If it's not clicking by doing that, that's not the solution. So don't just push them to do more, hoping it will fix itself.
I think sometimes mamas struggle and papas with like, what is the right reading material? And they teach courses on ChatGPT prompting. And I just thought of a great prompt that you could throw into that, which would be just, for a kid of this age, what would be some exciting fiction books that would interest them and pique their interest in the reading process that I might start reading to them. Simple things like that. Because, my wife has lists upon lists of beautiful fiction, wonderful series that my kids have chewed up 3 and 4, 5 times. Like my daughter has read this, anyway, she's Keeper of the Lost Cities. Like there's not a single series in the library that she has not devoured. She is voracious, and it's amazing. It's amazing. And so I think you leverage little cool AI tools to kind of help you guide you as a parent to figure out which books I could read with my kids.
Or ask your child's teacher or school. They've got lists and lists of books that.
And the librarians are awesome too. Like I'll go into the librarian with my daughter, and they'll start recommending. So, nope, she's read that one twice. Nope, she's read that one. But they're a wealth of knowledge super cool. This is really, really fun. Thank you so much, Dr. Jeremy, for joining us and sharing with us your knowledge. I'm excited for you to come teach our team at Voyage Clinics a little bit more and orient us how we can do better in this space. But I think also, hopefully, our parents are more aware, and maybe some of our pediatrician and family medicine listeners as well. This is really insightful. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Guys, I hope you learned some cool things on our podcast today. And don't forget to like and subscribe and share these with your friends and family.